Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I finally have my little behind the scenes video of content creation. Well, maybe not so little because I imagine this is going to be kind of long, but I just wanted to share my process when it comes to making YouTube videos for anyone curious, whether you've been wanting to start or you're just wondering how it works. And I'll also be answering a couple of other content creation related questions at the end of the video. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So first, let's talk about equipment. I know a lot of people kind of assume that to make YouTube videos, you need a camera, fancy lighting, all of that kind of stuff, which maybe is very intimidating. I mean, I know a lot of other content creators, especially nail tubers, do have those things, but if you are intimidated by them, you don't need to worry because I have none of those. I'm sure many of you know that I film all of my content on my iPhone. I have the 11 Pro, so it is pretty old at this point, but it's just what I have and it works for me. Whenever I'm filming, I always use the following settings, which are recording in 4K at 60 FPS, just because that provides the highest quality video. And as another tip, if you are using your phone, make sure to always wipe your camera lens with a little microfiber cloth or something, just to make sure your quality is extra pristine. I also have an iPad, which I pretty much use in place of a laptop or computer. So that's where I do all of my editing for my long form YouTube videos. I personally never filmed using my iPad, but I feel like I have seen some YouTubers use that for at least like the intro and outro, because it has like, a nice big screen as opposed to like a little phone screen, but whatever works. Technically, the only other tech that I have are these microphones, which I really only use for my intros and outros, and I would say that they're not totally necessary. You can check for my older videos. I did not have a microphone starting out. The main reason that I had to get one is because with my phone being so old, I guess maybe I dropped it at some point, and so my microphone doesn't really work when I use the camera app for whatever reason. So if I were to turn this off and only use like the, phone microphone, for my intros and outros specifically, it just wouldn't sound great. I've unfortunately had a couple of videos where that's happened, where I thought my mic was connected to the phone, but it wasn't, and then it just sounded pretty bad. But for the voiceover portion of the video, I can record with no problem because I'm using a different app. I guess technically lighting would fall under equipment, and personally I think using natural lighting is the best. I think it just looks the best. It's pretty much what I use for all of my photos whenever I'm posting on Instagram mainly. Sometimes I'll share photos like in my videos here, and when it comes to short form content, I usually love to or prefer to film in direct sunlight just because the lighting is really pretty. Just don't forget your sunscreen. But yeah, for 98% of my content, which is, the long form videos, I'm just filming at my desk. So let me just show you what my setup looks like. All right, so here is a look at my desk. It's basically the same exact setup as my nail desk tour video from a few years ago, if you remember that. But the main light source that I have is this pink ring light, of course, that Ryan got for me. It has the phone holder here, the arms are adjustable and everything, but this is pretty much how I set it up when I am filming my swatch and reviews. It has a few different lighting settings, right? So you can like adjust the temperature to be warm or this like in between, but I always use the coolest setting and at the brightest setting as well. And I also have this sort of like phone stand, like you could put your, I know there's like a little thing there, but you could put your phone in here. This is adjustable. This is also a secondary light. So I'll turn this on just like this because since this light is pretty strong, I feel like it can kind of have, some shadows. So this light is just to balance it out a little bit. I'll be honest, I don't love this as a light source because look, on its own, it's just it's so dim. Like this is not, not enough in my opinion. So, it's perfect for like a secondary light, just a little something extra. Honestly, I use this way more as just a phone stand when I'm filming like my short form content. And just like before, I have my napkins here, which is what I use for my removal. This one is obviously the removal. This was like the cleanup after, you know, the acetone tub. And I also have this little like, you know, small plushie here, which I'll use to like put my wrist on just to like help with the height and stuff. Like, again, this can be adjusted to be a little bit lower and closer to the desk, but I don't know, it's just what I do. But yeah, that's pretty much my setup here. So I'll have the phone, you know, in the holder, turn on my secondary light, and we're ready to go. I do already have a base coat on, but that's something else that I'll have just, you know, on the side for my swatches. But yeah, let me just show you the real-time process, I guess, of painting my nails, because I often am asked, how do I do it so fast? And I don't really know how to answer that. I just work fast, I guess. So, you know, this is what it's like. Surprisingly, not as messy as other swatches. Usually if I, you know, paint my sidewalls, I'll just go right in with my nail and like clean it up like that. And that's pretty much it. Like, you know, that's my coat. I don't let it dry down fully. I just record and that's it. I do normally film a couple clips at a time, since there is, you know, some dry time in between that I don't think it's necessary to have on camera. But again, for the sake of like showing you the full process, I'm just leaving the camera running. I will try to blow on the coats in between, right? Which is, you know, self-explanatory, just to make it dry down a little bit faster. But I would guess that's the main thing, or the main reason why or how I'm able to film so fast. I pretty much don't let things dry down like 100%. Definitely dry enough that the following coats don't, like, you know, mess up the layer underneath. But even at the end, I don't do a top coat or anything, right? I'll just film the coats as you saw and just do my little finger wiggle, since it is already shiny. And since I'm using the Cirque shades, they already dry down pretty shiny. So a top coat wouldn't really change much in how they look for the video. But of course, I would always recommend a top coat when you're painting your nails. So now we can do the second coat here. And yeah, I feel pretty lucky, I guess, that today I'm having a decently clean nail painting day. But as I'm sure you can tell, my hands are pretty shaky. That's just how they are. So even though these Crellies do provide a decent amount of coverage, right? Like usually for the polishes, I'll do the 2 coats, but sometimes, you know, the polishes would require 3 coats because you can still see some visible nail line. And I don't film the 3rd coat application just to save some more time, like to make the video not as long, because obviously with filming the rest of the swatches, but also the comparisons, where I feel like at this point, the comparison portion of my video takes up the most amount of time. I just try to, you know, trim down whatever else I can. And again, normally, since I'm not usually filming the 3rd coat, I will just kind of paint it like not here, like I'm like off camera or whatever. But yeah, I guess for, you know, the sake of this video, I might as well just show you the process of painting the 3rd coat. And that's pretty much it. For the removal part, I will just take the napkin that you saw before and like literally just wipe it off. It's like usually still fully wet, and I'm able to get off the majority of the polish. It's especially useful to do this when I have a, like, you know, kind of glitter or something more textured. And for the rest, I'll just use my little acetone tub and just, you know, clean up the rest of the nail. It's like really straightforward. And then use the other napkin that I have to sort of like dry dry my nail here. So since obviously using, 100% acetone is a little bit drying, you can see my cuticle area is a tiny bit dry. So I'll just use like a tiny amount of cuticle oil. This is like a really, literally a tiny one from Apocalypse. It's a sample size, but I'll just go in with like the smallest amount just to get like the skin around my nail. I try not to get it like on my nail because obviously that can interfere with the base coat sticking and whatnot. But if I do, I'll just like, try to wipe it off of my nail, then apply base coat and rinse and repeat with the rest of the swatches for the collection. So as you saw for my swatches, I will film the swatches of the full collection first, airdrop that to my iPad, then go in and film all of the comparisons, airdrop that to my iPad. And when it comes to full hand swatches, I usually record those separately because I like to record those in natural sunlight. So I'll do them in the morning just because I think it's nice to show how the polishes look, especially in direct sunlight or just any kind of bright indirect lighting. So once everything is on my iPad, then we can go into the editing process. For editing, I exclusively use the Splice app. It's what I have on both my iPad and also on my phone, which I'll edit like short form content. It's kind of similar to CapCut or any other app, I guess, but it's just very intuitive, at least I think so, and it's pretty much very bare bones, at least when it comes to my editing style, which, as I'm sure you know, is not anything crazy. So even though I know there are so many other like professional editing softwares to use, it just works for me and what I need for my videos. I do have the paid version of Splice, and I did for a while have the free version too. I think the biggest pro for paying for it is that it gives you access to their royalty-free music library, but if you're not really doing a lot of commissioned content, I guess, for, other brands where they require royalty-free music, then you don't really need to worry about that. And I'm pretty sure there are other like royalty-free libraries that you can use without paying for them. So there are plenty of other things out there, but this is just what works for me. But I did use the free version for a couple of years, I feel like, when I first started out. When it comes to making the video, you just like create a new file, select the video clips that you want to use, which are again all of the clips of the swatches, comparisons, all of that stuff, and then just open the file. So let me show you what that looks like in the screen recording now. So this is what it looks like once I have all the clips loaded onto Splice. You can see the video is about 47 minutes, and a lot of the editing is just zooming in, adjusting everything to be kind of in the center of the frame, and just trimming down a lot of the clips as well. So you can see along the bottom, I'm just kind of scrolling through to see the natural start and end points of each clip. And you can either click on it, hit split, and then delete the clip that you don't want, or you can also just drag the end of the clip. You can see there's a little like white banner with an arrow, so you can make that longer or shorter depending on the length of the video, which is what I'm about to do right now. I find the natural starting point again and then drag that all the way to where the yellow line is. And as you guessed it, I pretty much repeat the process for every clip moving forward. So I am going to be fast forwarding this next part, but it took me about 3 minutes to edit down swatching one color, including the live swatch portion, as well as showing the 2 clips of my full hand swatch in natural lighting. I usually will do this through the whole video first, like the editing down process, but just for the sake of this video, I wanted to show you the final step that I do, which is just adding in the text. There's a little text button at the bottom, type in, the name of the polish. Sometimes I'll add a background to the text if it's necessary, but most times I don't. And then I just move the text all the way to the top left corner of the screen and then drag the text, which you can see like that blue highlighted portion, to the beginning and the end of the swatch. Aside from dragging, you can also tap on the text and then hit this like arrow button, so that way it just automatically goes to the end of the next video clip, if that makes sense. Oh, and when necessary, I'll add in another text box to show if I'm doing 3 coats or if, you know, there's something else. Something else I like to do is to finish the end of my swatch clip at 0.0 seconds. It just makes timestamping a little bit easier later. One more important thing I do in my editing is adjust the temperature. Even though I do record using the whitest or coolest temperature, sometimes my videos just pick up a bit warm, but it's easy enough to fix in post here. You just click adjust, hit temperature, and then drag it so it's not as warm. Once it's adjusted, I actually hit apply all just because I don't want to do this manually for every single video clip. It's a long video. Since this Cirque Crowley Rainbow video was a lot longer due to all of the comparisons, it took me about 2 hours to go from editing the 47-minute long video down to just under half an hour. Again, this is definitely much longer than it usually takes me because for the comparison portion, I'm not usually showing like 1, 2, and 3 coats. It's something that I usually just like to do for jelly videos because you just see the differences in their coverage and colors a little bit better that way. So I would say for a normal video that, you know, has very straightforward comparisons where I'm just doing 2 coats of everything, it would take me about an hour. And even though I did mention before that I do film everything in 4K, when I go to save my video, I actually do save it in 1080p because I then have to do my voiceover, which I do on my phone. This is something that I kind of have to do because of my old equipment, right? Like my phone is really old. It doesn't have a lot of storage. If it did, I think I would be able to just kind of edit everything on my phone as opposed to like sending the files in batches, because even once I do edit everything down, the final video is going to be like a couple of gigs, like, you know, 3 to 5, depending on how long the video is. And again, that's just not space that I have available on my iPhone in addition to like all of the video clips. So that's why I have to move it to my iPad and then like move it back. It's a bit of a process, but I imagine if your phone has the space for it, you might be able to just like do everything on your phone, because again, using the Splice app is like pretty much the same from your phone to your iPad or whatever. And speaking of voiceovers, I actually record those in my closet because the clothes, I think, just help dampen, you know, any extra sound, and it just sounds a lot better in my opinion. Of course, you don't have to do that. You could just probably record on your phone as normal if you're in like a small room that doesn't have a lot of echo or anything, or just use like a microphone for a more up close sound. So you would think because this video ended up being 30 minutes, it wouldn't take me that long to do the voiceover for it, but unfortunately for me, it kind of does, especially if I don't script out my videos, which I didn't do for this one. I kind of went in a little overconfident because I'm very familiar with Cirque's jelly and Crowley formulas. I pretty much knew, you know, more or less like how the formulas would perform and what I would say, but some days are harder than others and it just can take me longer than others. So for this video specifically, it took me about an hour and 20 minutes to do my voiceover. So here I already recorded the voiceover by hitting audio and then voice, and with editing, it's just as simple as click, split, and drag. The first shade in the collection is Bubblegum Skies, and this one is described as a bubblegum pink Crowley. I would say that's pretty accurate. It's that perfect mid-tone sort of pink shade. And thankfully, we're now in the home stretch. So once I have my recorded voiceover video done and saved, I move it back to my iPad, and all that's left is to record my intro and outro. I guess technically this is the only content that I don't film in 4K, just because I guess, my background is kind of busy, so the file can just take a lot more space compared to filming, a thumb swatch at my desk. So anything with like my front-facing camera, I'll just record in HD, but still at 60 FPS. And this part usually only takes about like 10 minutes at most, depending on what I'm trying to say. And just like everything else, I'll send it to my iPad and edit everything again in Splice. I'll add in like a little clip of my intro card, my outro card, add in some music at the end, and save my video and then upload it to YouTube. Now, I don't know how many of you were keeping track of the hours that I mentioned working. I don't think I like said every single thing that I do, but I did write them down as I was working, which, I normally don't do, right? I just kind of wing it. But I was curious to see like how much work goes into a video for me. So when it comes to filming full hand swatches, for this collection specifically for Cirque, where I did 2 coats and took the pictures, in direct sunlight, it took me about an hour for the 6 polishes. To film the collection swatches at my desk, that part took another hour. I would say this usually can take less time because, again, I normally will just film like 2 coats for most polishes, but it depends on, the size of the collection and all of that. Obviously, if there are like magnetics, that adds time. For comparisons, this video took me an hour and a half, again, because I just had not only so many comparisons, but I was also showing the differences in 1, 2, and 3 coats, which I normally don't do. But I feel like for most of my videos these days, it does take like an extra hour just to film comparisons alone, because I just try to share as many as I can. As I mentioned, for my voiceover portion, that took me an hour and 20 minutes. Filming my intro and outro took me roughly 10 minutes. It would take no more than that. And then again, editing my video down before doing the voiceover took me about 2 hours. So all in all, it took me roughly 6 hours of work to film the Cirque Over the Rainbow collection video. And that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, especially for me who does this like full time. A 6-hour like workday essentially, sounds like a dream, I'm sure. But you can also see how this can easily work as like a side hustle for people, where if you're gonna do like 1 video a week, you can just split it up like an hour every day and work on a video. But another sort of unfortunate truth when it comes to YouTube is the pay. When you're starting out on YouTube, in order to get monetized, you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. At least that's what you needed back when I was starting, which was in 2022. It might also be different if you're looking to only create short form content. So I'm sure, when you're signing up for YouTube, there's like a little section to see what you need for your monetization goals. I think most YouTubers hit the subscriber goal before the watch time goal, because 4,000 hours is a lot. And unfortunately, that means that you're doing a lot of unpaid labor in the beginning. So for reference, when I started in May of 2022, I was uploading 2 to 4 videos every single week with no break. So I didn't get 1,000 subscribers until November of 2022, which was about 6 months later. And I didn't get the 4,000 hours of watch time until the following month in December. I wouldn't be surprised if my timeline is on the much shorter side, because I know there are so many other nail tubers who have been creating content for longer than I have, and maybe they only just recently got monetized. For anyone who doesn't follow me on Instagram, I've been creating content over there since 2015, and I hit 100K followers, I think back in 2021. So I pretty much already had like a big following before creating my YouTube channel. So I'm sure, that helped me a lot, because I just already had like an audience. I was pretty known in the nail community. So people on Instagram just followed me over onto YouTube. I know I also filled a little gap in the market too, where I was doing comparisons in my videos. It's pretty much the reason why I wanted to start doing YouTube. I mean, I always wanted to do YouTube in general, but it really pushed me to finally start because I would just notice all of these comparisons of, these collections coming out and polishes looking really similar, but nobody was showing them. So because of that, I think I did also get really lucky with just getting a lot of followers and subscribers wanting to see those comparisons. So your timeline may look very different compared to mine, but if you do have something, that sets your content apart, that obviously really helps. But even once you do finally get monetized, as exciting as it is, you quickly are humbled again because you're not just like making so much money all of a sudden. You first get paid once you reach like $100 in ad revenue. And like I said, I got monetized in December of 2022, but I didn't get my first paycheck from YouTube until March of 2023. So it took a couple of months to finally hit that $100 threshold because unfortunately, with how many hours you're putting in, despite being so excited to finally get monetized, like I will never forget the feeling of, looking at the analytics portion to see like, the revenue and being so humbled that I made $1.63 per video. And that's for all of the hours worked, right? So it takes a while, to get more money and ad revenue from your videos. I'm pretty sure the ad revenue goes up based on how many people are watching. I know a lot of people kind of assume like, oh, the more subscribers you have, like the more money you can make, which sure, subscribers like can count for something, but what matters most is the watch time. So if you're subscribed but not watching, that doesn't really do anything. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Like, don't make having the most subscribers your goal. The goal should be making content that people want to watch. So for a while, my videos would average $20 to $30 per video, which again would still take about like 6 or so hours of work, which is less than minimum wage. While I do make a bit more now per video, it still isn't enough where YouTube can just be like my main source of income where I can just make a living off of it. I definitely think posting on YouTube is so fun. I mean, the biggest thing I would say is to not do it for the money, which is never what my intention was. I just really wanted to like share the content that I wanted to share with like these other videos that I do. I know I share a lot of like swatch and reviews and comparisons, which I still enjoy because I feel like I am helping a lot of people, but I also just really love doing like the other, creative kind of videos, like my curated collections, my polishes inspired by like the month. So as long as you have, these creative ideas and you have fun doing it, then, go ahead, post on YouTube, right? Like there's no downside, I would say, because if you are posting consistently enough, then, eventually you could get monetized and then just finally see like a return on all the time that you spent. This also might be different for short form creators too. Like I know there are some content creators who exclusively upload shorts and, those videos can like go viral. I have no idea how much they can make. As somebody who does post both forms of content, I definitely make pennies on my shorts videos compared to my long form videos. Like for example, a good short for me would make me $2. Usually they're about like 20 cents, 30 cents, 50 cents, and that's with a couple of thousand of views, so just keep that in mind. If you go viral, that probably would be really helpful because you would just get a lot more money from that one video and hopefully more followers, more subscribers who will continue to watch your other content and therefore drive up your ad revenue. But I don't know how sustainable that is, so again, with YouTube, it's kind of best to look at it as like supplemental income, if anything. I feel like I got really lucky with how things worked out for me because aside from just, having like a massive platform, especially on Instagram, I imagine a lot of people thought I'm like rich just because of that alone, but there were a lot of my friends who had a fraction of my following, but making like double my income because they're the ones actually working with brands a lot more, you know, doing swatches for them, creating reels for their social media, things like that. But I feel like I still got really lucky with the brands that I did work with over the course of the years. But now that I am like much more established as a YouTuber, and you know, I'm sure many of you know too that I'm also like an affiliate with several brands where I get 10% commission based off of how many people use my codes at checkout. I'm able to just get more from these different avenues, you know? And occasionally another like big thing on YouTube is sponsorships, which I know for just YouTube in general, you're probably used to seeing like third-party sponsorships, right? Where people are talking about, you know, other brands or companies or whatever. When it comes to like the nail space, I think it's a lot more common to be sponsored by the brand specifically that you're showing. I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable sharing how much I make from the sponsored videos that I do occasionally do, but it is much more reflective of the amount of time that I spent working on the videos. So that's my not so little behind the scenes look at being a nail tuber. I don't know why I'm kind of nervous about sharing this. Like, I'm not trying to gatekeep information or anything, but I guess I'm just nervous of being like judged because I think when it comes to my following, people might assume that I'm making way more than I am. But like I'm pretty sure I mentioned before, I have friends who have a fraction of my following size, but have made closer to double my income because of the work that they do swatching for brands, specifically drugstore brands. That's where the big money is when it comes to content creation, but unfortunately for the indie and boutique side, it's not really financially rewarding. So if that's what you're going into it for, you're probably going to be disappointed. I know there are a lot of people who think they're like totally okay with swatching for free, you know, because they're swatching these indie brands and everything. But even when it comes to indie brands, like they should still be paying their swatchers. I know the majority do, but even if you do decide to do it for free for a while, after enough time, you are going to be tired of working for free, even if you are getting these pretty polishes, because there are other people who are getting paid, you know? So don't ever work for free. I really think the biggest driving force for like being on social media should be because you just enjoy doing it. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who, you know, just want to be noticed or like have a massive following, and like I get it, but I just don't really relate to that. Even though I do have all of those things now, I just was very lucky with posting the things that I've always wanted to post, and all of those things found me. And yeah, I just can't help but feel really lucky that after 3 years of being monetized on YouTube, it's starting to finally pay off a bit. I also can totally recognize that I'm in a very like privileged situation between me and Ryan, where even when I wasn't making the money that I am now, he was the one. I mean, Ryan is an engineer, so like there was no world where I would ever be able to compete with his salary, but at least I'm able to contribute a bit more. It might not be like 50% of the rent, you know, but it's enough that works for us. So yeah, I'm not sure how many people think that, you know, being a YouTuber is gonna make you rich or whatever, but it's enough, at least for me now, to cover the bills. And honestly, that's enough for me. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful in some way. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know down below, or just let me know your thoughts so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.